Canine Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Greubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists. It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Welcome back to the Canine Detection Collaborative. My name is Crystal Wing, and I am here with the fabulous Stacy Barnett.
Hello.
And the stupendous Robin Greubel.
Greetings.
And I'm here in my van somewhere in Missouri trying to get internet. And we are here to talk about coaching. I put a post up on my personal Facebook page, and I woke up that morning and the first thing I read was a post that doesn't even have the author, but it says that being coached hard is not abuse. Being held to high standards for your own growth and development is not abuse. Loving your athletes enough to not let them settle is not abuse. Improvement and success don't come on the back of a unicorn galloping over a rainbow. And I thought, that's a lot of words that we go from abuse to unicorns galloping and rainbows. And then what hit me that was really interesting was later that day, I came across another one. It was the quote of the day from my old track and field coaching emails that I get. And it's from Bum Phillips that says, coaching is not how much you know, it's how much you can get players to do. I put this up because I had some pretty strong feelings straight away. And sometimes when I have strong feelings, I just write them out and share them. And instead on this one, I just said, I saw these and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then we were talking about our next episode. And I said, Stacy and Robin, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So here we are today. So how does coaching apply to dog training?
So as someone who has gone through executive coaching school, two versions of it, I will say...
You're a resident expert, by the way. That makes you the expert.
Well, that means I have an official certification.
Well, actually, both of you are experts because Crystal was actually a coach.
A coach, right. She was an athletic coach.
So basically, you guys can talk and I'm just going to sit here and eat my pizza.
Well, but the whole thing is
I'll contribute.
Right.
But I think you're a coach too. That's where we're going to talk about this. It says athletes.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. It is athletes, but I read the quotes and it's one of those things where as a coach, the type of coaching that I do is actually designed to be all about the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily always get to pick the destination on where they want to go. That's not my job as a coach. My job as a coach is actually to help them identify a goal and then help them identify and remove roadblocks to get to the goal.
Kind of sounds like dog training.
It is dog training. But, and it goes back to the whole, my job as a coach is to get the handler or the trainer to either see what they're doing from a totally different lens so they can understand why they might be having the problems that they're having, which could be construed as coaching somebody hard because people know it's not unusual to have people cry while they're here at the foundation.
Oh, yeah.
You want to share more about that. Don't just stop there.
Yeah. Because people are like, oh my gosh, especially with distraction camp coming. We don't make you cry like sad tears.
We're not holding you out. I mean, it's literally, we don't set up gotcha stuff unless you specifically ask us to set up gotcha stuff,
and
right?
Even then, we don't set up gotcha stuff.
No, we really don't. We set up hard stuff.
Yeah.
We absolutely will set up hard stuff, and we will set up stuff that challenges your preconceptions as a canine trainer and handler.
But also in a thoughtful, progressive way. So it's not just all of a sudden really hard stuff. It's progressively getting difficult in ways that you can understand it that builds on the previous.
Right.
And in a safe environment.
In a very safe environment.
So why are you making them cry, Robin?
Because usually they have an epiphany.
Yeah.
And with a safe learning environment, it is okay for people to challenge and think about whatever they have going on that gets them to realize either I don't have to do it that way, I can do it differently. It's safe for me to admit that, oh my God, this is going on in my brain. And, all of these things. And because we strive so hard to have a safe, supportive environment, a lot of people come back all of the time, which is really nice because we know. And then to be perfectly honest, there are people who have come here they've gone through several years of training with me. And then now they're off learning from other people, which is perfectly okay.
Yep.
Right. For me, it's really important because you need different types of coaches or instructors at different stages of your life. And I'm like, people just go out and go to training.
It's interesting kind of talking about that. So clearly, from the coaching perspective, there can be a lot of emotions tied up. And when we start kind of thinking about coaching, there's such emotions I think that they're kind of a little bit of a vehicle in some ways, and they can be a blockade in others. And I think from a vehicle perspective, right, if we kind of think about how if people are kind of emotionally open to being okay with maybe accepting that there are different ways of doing things or letting go of other ways of doing things, that's one thing. But then sometimes there's emotional blockades, which as a coach can make it extraordinarily difficult to coach some individuals. Was kind of what I was thinking there. Because I know personally, and this kind of goes back to Crystal's quote, where how I work with a person is going to actually vary depending upon how I think, first of all, on what I think they need, and second of all, what I think they can absorb. And I definitely have some students where we have a little bit of a sit down and talking type of session where I'm like, look, we need to make these changes. And, if you keep doing what you're doing, this is going to be the outcome. And, you really need to pay attention to what, and we're very specific, very pointed, but in a kind way, but very pointed. And then I have other students where I feel like if I say anything that even sounds like criticism, that they won't be able to cope. And then I have a bunch in between.
So I'm going to start breaking this down because there's so much here in what's being shared. I think first off, we have to identify, and the learner has to identify. So what does the learner want out of the session? What is their goal? Are they in it to have fun? Are they in it to compete? Are they in it to certify? Are they in it to deploy? So I think that's the first thing to be identified. And that's why when I typically work with people, I'm very much right up front, like, I want to know, what is your goal? Because part of this quote says, improvement and success don't come on the back of a unicorn galloping over a rainbow.
Correct.
First off, I love unicorns galloping over rainbows, so there's no shade on that at all. But improvement, I think everybody in some form or another wants improvement, or else they wouldn't be seeking out an educator, a coach, a teacher, a trainer, someone to help them. But I think success is a big question mark there for me, because Robin, you immediately went to, I coach humans.
Yes.
And Stacy, you kind of talked about coaching the human. I'm also thinking about it as put all of this as dog or learner. So that's another way I kind of try to kind of go back. So what is the role of my dog as the learner? So some people say that I am the leader, I am the coach, I am the boss. So I think that also is another part to look at that.
Absolutely. And with what we do, because we spend a lot of time with the humans, because we don't train their dogs. They train their dogs.
Right.
And we have to understand not only how does that particular dog learn and respond to their human, but then we have to figure out how to best influence the human so that they understand how their dog learns.
And that's especially important. I know all of us do online coaching, right?
Yeah.
So being able to do that in an online format, there's an added challenge there, because in that type of situation, I know for me, because teaching at Fenzi Dog Sports Academy, I'm seeing only the video that they upload and the comments that they make. So in that type of a situation, I have to kind of read between the lines a little bit. And I am really, really watching the dog's behavior as they're working. And I make a lot of extrapolation based on what I see and the dog's body language in the different situations that they're in. And then definitely taking that in consideration, like, how sensitive is the dog? How resilient is the dog? Is the dog comfortable in new environments? Is the dog okay with bigger types of change, or do we need to take things even more incremental than we normally would? What stresses the dog? Is the dog pressure sensitive? Like all of these things that you have to be able to see, that's just giving you an idea of what the dog's temperament makeup is. And in a way that you've got to be able to kind of make those extrapolations almost immediately. And then based upon what the handler is telling you and what you're seeing, making some kind of coaching from that perspective. And that can be tough, especially if they come in. I work with a lot of people that maybe use my coaching as a supplemental to what they usually get, or maybe I've never even worked with them before and they come into one of my classes. And so a lot of, from a coaching perspective, they come in with a different history. And as a coach, you have to adapt to that. It's hard.
I think something that is important to understand too is that coaches do know what is possible. And that's what I'm trying to read in this first one, is that being held to high standards for your own growth and development is not abuse. And they're saying that being coached hard is not abuse. I think I get caught up on the whole is not abuse thing that they repeat 3 times. And it's all bold.
Yeah.
And so I think that word abuse is what really kept catching me and kept making me go, I don't like this. I don't feel comfortable with this.
Gotcha.
And I think it's because of the way in our different, I'll say communities, the word abuse gets thrown out there. For one group, saying that putting my dog in an outdoor kennel for 8 hours while I'm at work is abuse. And it's like, whoa, dude.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe I have a sensitivity to that.
Yeah. Because or some people feeding kibble is abuse.
Right. Yeah. Like I feel like we're throwing that word around so much, so freely.
Yeah.
And that's such a strong word in my mind. And so I feel like the person that wrote this, and I wish it had a name to it. If you're out there and you hear this and you know who wrote this, please let us know and we'll make sure that we credit you because it got the conversation started. So I think if I took away the word abuse even and just went with the idea that they're saying that being coached hard, being held to high standards for your own growth and development, loving your athletes enough to not let them settle, those are the concepts that they're trying to get across.
Yeah.
I just watched something, I got stuck on a reel, and it was this little kid, and the coach was saying, the difference between, he asked the kid, he's like, do you want to go and play high school baseball? He's like, yeah. Do you want to go to play college baseball? He's like, yeah. Do you want to get drafted in the big leagues? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, what's the difference? He's like, playing on my own. He's like, okay, so did you do that? And he's like, no. He's like, what did you do? And he said, I went to practice every night. And I went to Little League and we had 2 games. And he's like, did you play on your own at all? And he's like, no. And it's like, oh my gosh, at the same time, it's a kid. And I think I come from the background of I played really, really hard and I played a lot of sports. And I keep thinking about our dogs and our puppies. So many times we're not letting our dogs be dogs and our puppies be puppies. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm in this weird moment right now of seeing both sides, because if I think about this written for a dog, being coached hard is not abuse for the dog. Mm-hmm. Being held to high standards for the dog's growth and development is not abuse. What does that look like? So for one person, being coached hard looks way different than another. Yeah. And I think that's where the quote hit me wrong, because I've seen some really hard training on really young dogs where, they're doing palisades and, high jumps before they're even a year old. And in my mind, no, it's really common, super common.
Well, I go back to all the people in the disaster dog world who are doing a whole bunch of pile work before the dog is won or before growth plates are fused. That's where I go. I'm like, growth plates aren't fused. I have to deal with dogs with old age and arthritis. And I have just kind of made the decision that any of my young dogs, including Nico, we didn't do a whole lot of pile work until I knew he could do it because we tested occasionally, but extensive pile work didn't really start happening until those growth plates were fused, because the pounding that they take, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're talking concrete. They're jumping up and down on concrete. It's not like Evo mats or whatever.
Right.
You don't have perfect footing. It's a disaster
Yes.
is rubble. You know, when people think about that, I mean, when you're saying a pile, I think a lot of the youth star people and a lot of the search and rescue people are going to have that picture in their head. But I think a lot of people that are not in that world aren't going to necessarily be like, okay, I don't know what she's talking about.
So when we think pile and what these dogs get deployed for, think World Trade Center, more Oklahoma tornadoes, the seaside building collapse, those sorts of things. It's not a pleasant
pile of concrete and short things. And
the Joplin tornado, where those two tornadoes converged, literally looked like somebody took Tinker Toys and just dropped them in a pile that was 2 blocks big.
Wow.
And it was 10 feet tall. So, and it's scary stuff. But when we're asking our young dogs, you know, one of the things that Flash just came into heat. She's 14 months old. And her poor little puppy brain with all of the hormones literally checked out.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And so literally all she's doing for a couple of weeks until we see that her brain comes back is being a dog.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not even going to stores. Well, she might a little bit go to stores, but then somebody's got to follow her around with a freaking paper towel. And so it's
panties.
Yeah. Panties. We could do panties. Oh my God. Then the people who want to pet your dog. But anyway.
Yeah. That's a whole other.
That's a whole nother problem, right?
Okay. And you have to talk to Susan at the Fluffy Badger because she makes the best little bitches britches. You would love them. And she makes them custom too with different designs.
Oh, okay. I will have to go look.
I still have one intact, girl. I may have to look at that one.
Oh, yeah. Susan's the best. She makes the best.
Oh, my God. So every time I wear one of my fluffy, total side note, squirrel, I wear my Fluffy Badger hoodies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Somebody says, hey, you've got your sweatshirt on backwards. I'm like, nope, that's for my toy.
Yes. I had mine on at, I think I was in Wilderness First Aid, and someone's like, is your sweatshirt on back? I'm like, no, that's for a toy. They're like, ooh.
I just had my big SAR weekend, and all 3 days I had a different Fluffy Badger hoodie on. Yeah. And all 3 days people are like, are you kidding me? You have another? I'm like, okay, it's my last one. Aren't they great? Everyone's like, I'm ordering one. I'm like, I know.
We'll put the link in the show notes, guys.
Well, yes, because they're super soft. They're lovely. Yeah. And she'll do custom embroidery stuff. So they're awesome.
It's like a hoodie, but then that front pouch, you have one of those in the back.
So you can put
a toy in there. It's amazing.
Or cookies.
I had
whatever.
my long line in my front pocket, and I had my toy in the back pocket, and then I had my treat pouch. And so it was just perfect. I had everything I needed. Sorry. Okay, back to what you're saying.
Okay. God, now I don't
Infomercial over.
I know, right? Yay, Susan.
But it's the whole let the puppies be puppies. And, you know, there was another Facebook post somebody's like, well, is 7 months too old to start your puppy in search and rescue? And I'm like, I start my puppies at 8 weeks.
It's like, well, what are you doing? Like, what's specific? What are the activities?
Yeah. We're learning that we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, puppy version.
Yep.
And we're learning how to sit, and we're learning not to do stupid stuff and all sorts of things.
Building our reinforcement systems. All of that is training.
Building your reinforcement systems. Yes.
I did love this quote, or not quote, I guess. So can I use names of people that commented? Is that okay, you think?
You know what? Let's use first name and no last name, maybe?
Okay. So Cheryl.
That way we're kind of anonymous, kind of not.
Yeah, right. I loved what she said. She talked about it, and she said, teaching is an art form. It takes creativity, insight about what drives your coachee and how they learn, and a willingness to adapt and recognize in yourself what needs changing. Just knowing what you know doesn't even begin to make you a good coach. Amen, sister. I could just preach on that one. Just knowing what you know doesn't begin to make you a good coach. So true.
Yeah. So true.
So for me, she agrees. The first quote, while maybe well-intended, struck me wrong. It sounds defensive. I'm like, yes, I think that's what got me about it. It felt defensive. And she also says what they mean by hard coaching. It can be so many different things. I do heartily believe that people rise to the level of the expectations of them. Low expectations, low performance. But the coachee does first have to have the capability to meet the expectation. Basic tenets are applied to dogs and people alike, and she shares 5 of them. The first one, are they capable of doing the thing you are asking them to do? So I think that goes back to, when are we going to have our dogs do those jumping things? I mean, that's a physical thing, but also there's a lot of mental and emotional and all of that tied into it as well. The second one, teach them what it is you want them to do and how. This sounds obvious, but is often the most missed step. Amen to that too. I mean, I make mistakes too on that. I'm stepping away from what she wrote. Because I think about having second, third, fourth, fifth dog. Sometimes I'm like, wait, didn't I already teach that? And then I'm like, oh no, that was the last several dogs. I haven't taught this dog that. I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, it's like, whoops, I missed that piece.
Yeah, I haven't taught that yet. Number 3.
I hate that when that happens.
Oh yeah. Expect them to do it and hold them to it. Another complex topic for discussion. So in my mind, that one's consistency. Number 4, if they're not doing it, figure out why. Number 5, adapt your coaching to what they need to successfully meet that expectation. Sounds super simplistic, which it isn't, but those are my basic tenets. Cheryl, mwah, that was beautiful. I love that comment. And I love the idea of the adapting, figuring out why it's not working. I mean, everything there. That's the coach I want. The person that follows those 5 tenets, I believe, is going to be a successful coach. Now, I am going to twist this around a little. I kind of want those 5 things of my learner too.
Yes.
So if my learner is a human learner, I want them to be capable of doing the things. And if they're not capable, I either need them to have the awareness of that or to communicate that to me.
Yeah.
I want them to learn, obviously, what I want them and how I want them to do it. And I need them to be open to that. And if they're not open, then they're not willing to do that. And not only do I want consistency of myself, but I also want consistency of that they're following through. So when you teach somebody something and you say, work on it this week, well, they should work on it that week. It shouldn't be that you have to hold somebody's hand. So I think that's where I get a little hung up of, I can't want it more than my learner all the time. Like they have to want this. They have to have this desire.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't do it, I would hope that they can start to say, I can't do this. And I don't know why, but let's work out together why this isn't happening. And that's how we both adapt, because not everyone is going to click and some of us are going to go better with others. But sometimes there's that person that really knows their stuff. And just because it's not the exact same style that you like to learn from, you can still open and be adaptable to be able to take in their information. And so I think that's something that we're becoming a little less capable of in general. And I think maybe I'm just saying that because of seeing all my high school kids. But it's kind of like, if you're not my cup of tea, then forget you. That's like, no, we can adapt and we can learn from lots of different people and lots of different styles.
We absolutely can. And I think that is one of the things that I learned in corporate America. And my coaching school was like a year long by the time I went through both classes. And it was one of those whole things about concentrate on the message that is trying to be given, not necessarily how the message is being delivered.
Mm-hmm. Or who it's being delivered from.
Correct. I learned that one really, really poignantly in corporate America when I had to work with someone who, let's just say, I did not appreciate their communication style.
Okay.
And it took me about a year and a half to not only get them to clarify that when they said certain things, they were actually not including my business unit.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying it for the rest of the company. And it's not internalizing it as an attack on me. But then I also had to realize that he was trying to give me information. And because I was so pissed off all the time that he was theoretically bashing my business unit, that I kept missing the message.
Okay.
Right. And as soon as I stopped missing the message, I went home less angry. Yay, team.
Right.
And B, I became a much more effective team member. I will literally tell people a lot of the time, because I'll get those one-off conversations kind of, hey, I need to run something by you. I need to run this by you. And so it comes into this. So one time at band camp is literally kind of the feel it has.
Uh-huh.
And my usual advice is take a step back.
Uh-huh.
This is probably not about you. Sometimes it might be about you, but it's probably not about you. But look at the situation that's going on. Is it indicative of something else? And sometimes I get and we all have so much going on in our lives that I think sometimes we very much immediately take things very, very personally. And sometimes I really try and emphasize in my head is it that I just need to let it ride. This is more about them than it is about me. And I have enough other stuff going on in my life. I don't need to dwell on it.
And that's actually the beauty of having someone to get to talk to, because I think sometimes it's hard if we're kind of by ourselves on an island to have kind of that outside perspective, right?
Yes.
Because I know a lot of times, like sometimes I'll read something and I'll have like that emotional knee-jerk reaction. And then if I talk to somebody, they'll be like, hey, maybe it's not about you. But if somebody else has that knee-jerk reaction, I can say, hey, maybe it's not about you. So sometimes, having, kind of that other perspective can help.
Right.
There's a tool I've been using at school that's been really helpful, and I can't think of the name of it, so I'll just have to link it. But it's an AI tool, and I have a hard time sometimes understanding the voice of something that's been written. And I go, I feel like that has some bite behind it. That's spicy. And it's really cool because you can copy the email or copy the message and you put it in and you ask it, what tone is this? And it tells you what the tone is. It has been so helpful for me.
Wow.
And it's specifically made for ADHD people, but it's been helpful for a lot of my students too.
I need that link.
Yeah. And then it's nice too, because whenever I write things, sometimes I need to take the tone out of it. And so I write it just as sassy as I want it to be. And then I tell it to change it to professional or to,
Right.
to polite or whatever it is. And it
that's funny.
it's like, poof. Oh, wow. Look at that. That's so much better.
Oh, I need that so bad.
So random, and I'll add that in, but it's just that the whole, I think I like Christy's comment because it kind of goes there too. It says, I think it's completely subjective based on the interpretation of the receiver. What is abuse to one is motivating to another. One individual might need support through hard times. Another might just need pushing. General statements like these are always right and always wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that also, there's a lot of people agreeing kind of what you said there. Now, Joe wrote a comment that made me immediately think of UConn. And she was starting off talking about not letting your athletes settle if there's an agenda, because one person has unnatural talent. Does that mean they had to be dedicating their lives to that talent, especially if maybe it's not what they want to do? And so she said, your dream for my athletic talent does not supersede my own hopes and aspirations and may be unrelated to that talent. Being my best self includes meeting my own goals and being happy there. And I just like that whole last bit, I just thought of UConn. Like, he's such an athletic dog and everything about him should be a bitey dog.
Yeah, but he's not.
his happy self is chasing butterflies.
Yeah.
And so I do think that the coaching hard, I could have kept coaching him hard and I could have kept pushing him to do the thing. But I think that's where being a good coach comes in, of realizing that's not what that coachee, as Cheryl said, is willing to be.
It's really, really interesting because I guess I'll just come out and say it. I had all of these really super duper big aspirations for Flash to be a female level disaster dog. Flash doesn't like to bark.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Right? And could I train her to bark? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She'll bark for turkey necks. She really likes them a lot.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot because her frustration level is, she's like, dude, you guys are stupid.
She doesn't get, I saw she doesn't
not right.
No.
Her arousal level or I've done a really, really good job as a young puppy of teaching her, be patient. You're going to get what you want by being quiet and sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what she now does. And so I was talking with somebody and I was like, you know what? Flash would love to be a disaster quality or disaster dog. Her freaking, the way she will launch herself to do detection work, and she parkours everything.
Yep.
But I know that if I send her up onto a rubble pile and she's tired or whatever else is going on, that bark isn't going to come easy.
Yeah.
So I, as a trainer, look at her and go, I love you. I will have to let go that is not the job that you were supposed to do. So we will now go do this.
Right. Now, lucky for you, you've got all these other demands, right?
Yeah, I have other options we can go do, and she's going to excel at those.
She's going to be a rock star no matter what.
Right. And it's okay. And I have some breedings that are going to come up that are going to have probably dogs that are a little bit more barky.
Oh, yeah.
And it's okay.
That pairing is so clear-headed.
Yes.
And it's almost like that clear-headed almost worked against you in that situation.
In this particular situation. Now I've got other puppies who are actually out doing disaster dog work.
Right. But this particular situation.
But this particular, and I told those handlers when they were getting those puppies from a very young age, teach them how to bark on cue.
Yeah.
And so they have, which is awesome. I just didn't take my own advice. But I can choose. That's my learner. My learner is telling me, I don't want to go do that thing. So I'm like, okay, we won't go do that thing. And I've run across human students who, as you start asking them questions on what they want to do or where they want to be and all of these other things, it actually ends up leading you down a certain path that you're like, this is how I have to coach them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise their time with me is not going to be productive.
Right.
And I have gone all the way from pull your head out from where the sun doesn't shine to sitting down and having a really heart-to-heart conversation about what's their why. And the person who kind of introduced that whole concept of what's your why is Brad Dennis. And that was a phenomenal discussion with him. I have different questions that I ask people when we start coaching because I can have an agenda for them. But often when you're coaching somebody with a dog, they have burning problems and my agenda doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I coach a lot of people with a lot of such a broad variety and spectrum of dogs from all ages, all breeds, all sizes, all backgrounds, all capabilities. And same with the handlers. And sometimes there's a slight mismatch between the handlers' ambition and what the dog can even emotionally produce.
Oh, I hate those conversations are really hard.
That is really hard because my ultimate goal is that the team is, and again, this is for sport detection, right? There's no lives on the line here. This is about, for nose work, it's about making that team the best that they can be. And in those situations, helping the handler to understand what the dog is going to struggle with, being realistic with the dog in a way that they can then be empathetic with the dog, because without that realism, there's no empathy. It's just frustration. So I have to establish that empathy so that they can start to meet that dog in the middle and then also communicate like, look, I know you have tons of ambition. This dog is also going to help you to learn so that, and the dog is going to live their very best life and at the same time prepare you for future partnerships with different dogs also. I mean, it's kind of like, I think about my own little dog, Y, right? If I put summit level pressure on that dog, he would just completely check out and say, I don't want to play this anymore. And I've had to have some of those conversations and they're hard. They're really hard.
One of the conversations I had last weekend at the search and rescue workshop is I think that Radish and I are super close to being deployable. We've been certified since August. And I just have some pieces that I'm still like, I want to get this better and I want to get this better. But I also know I'm a high drive human. And so I expect really high levels. And sometimes that bites me in the butt because if it's not perfect, then we're not doing it. And something that I really appreciated that Christy said was that she said, I also agree, you're very close. She said that I think if you're having to ask me that question, then you're not ready. And
yes,
I really appreciated that. And my thought was going, okay, but coaches know, and people that have been doing it, they know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And getting that feedback is so helpful because sometimes you don't know what to ask and you don't know, like, you know that they've seen so many dogs, they've seen so many handlers, they've seen so many teams.
Yeah.
And they can right straight away say, yes, I would call that person out to join me on any search right now. And they'll look at the next person and go, whoa, they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fair for me to say, where do I lie on that spectrum? And I don't know. I think that that's something important to think about because coaches do know what's possible.
Yeah.
And, in the quote also talks about, that they love you enough to push you and they love you enough. I think that's also where those emotions come in. And that first, statement, there's so many heavy, heavy words about hard, abuse, love, unicorns galloping,
So I just want to kind of go back to something you said though.
Yeah.
You're talking about that it's fair, right? I think also given the situation, it's essential because if you're talking about deploying into a situation where maybe you're looking for a lost individual or you're working on a case that may end up, going to court, that is one thing. If you're like saying, should I enter master level interiors?
Right.
That's something different. And I think as a coach, you have to also, there's what is riding on this type of discussion that also, because the discussion that you're having with Christy is there's an undercurrent of what is riding on this.
Yeah.
Which is, different than if someone says to me like, hey, do you think I could do elite with this dog or do
Okay, for instance, Radish is getting her BH on Saturday. And by saying getting, okay, I can be honest, it's not happening. We don't even have it down. We haven't practiced the last several days because we've been doing so much on search and rescue and Mondio Ring and everything else, but it's not the same pressure.
No.
Right. So we're going to go out and I have her book and we're going to compete. I'm going to pay my money and we're going to have a great time. And there's no pressure there. So I have no problem going out and doing that. But when it comes to going out and searching for loved ones.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting is I remember when Stacy and I first met, we were having the conversation about competition.
I don't remember this conversation. This is going to be a little bit of a surprise to me, but okay.
I do. I remember having the conversation about the fact that sometimes I really, really would like to just train my dog. And if we failed, the possibility of somebody being left behind or somebody dying was not there.
Yeah. Yep.
And hence why I'm doing hunting dog stuff. Because if my dog doesn't pass that day, you know what? Yeah, I lost some money and it's annoying, but I found a whole bunch of stuff that I'm going to work on. But you know what?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Stacy, you're getting that dose.
I'm understanding it.
Yes.
And it's about if I don't get this criteria really solid, or if I cut corners in training, actually, I can't go there. I get kind of like emotional. I just can't go there.
And
to be honest, I can't.
Well, and live find brings a whole other, the day that Moses found somebody and the paramedics looked at us and said, if he hadn't found this person, he would have been dead in about 2 hours, is the day a switch really flipped in me. And I feel bad for some of the area search people or live find disaster dog people that I work with, because I am probably not the nicest coach sometimes, because I was like, somebody could die because you don't do your job.
So I like that Tess in the thing talks about having reasonable expectations and reasonable goals. And that's where you have to realize that not every trainer and not every dog is cut out for some of the things that maybe they have desire to do. And that's the really difficult conversations that you need to have the right coach to have that conversation, because you need the honesty and you need that support and that safe space to be able to hear that and not take it as a, well, I'm going to prove them wrong. It's not about that. We're not trying to prove somebody wrong when it's a matter of a lot of people are counting on you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's actually the beautiful part about sport detection, right? Honestly, because it's actually really great because you really can just focus on just doing the dog and the teamwork that you have with your dog. And, if your dog has a bad day or if you have a bad day, in the end, you still go home and you just still, give your dog a bunch of cookies and some belly rubs and, you try again the next weekend. And And it's a beautiful thing. And wow, we're on a totally off on our tangent, but it's an important one.
No, this is totally it, because I don't get why some of the people are in search and rescue.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you go out with your expectations of doing nose work? Because you're not set up either physically or emotionally to do it. Your dog is not set up to do it. And just because it's something cool to do with your dog. And I see that too often. I mean, I saw that last weekend at every single seminar. There are those people that I just go, wow, you could be out having a great time with your best buddy because you've said that's what you want to do. It doesn't mean you have to do search and rescue. Nose work is amazing. That's why we do this collaborative. Nose work is amazing.
It's amazing.
I want everybody to do stuff nose work oriented with their dog.
Yeah.
Whether you go from nose work for fun in your backyard to nose work sport, go find, your kid, running around in the yard, or go find your kibble, to all the way of FEMA and disaster and avalanche. I mean, expectations, friends.
Expectations. And I have been on the giving end of whatever, everything from, I've seen it all of the way through the bomb dog stuff, the explosives dog stuff with people that I'm training with, to search and rescue, and even some of the nose work handlers whose dogs, just the job that the human wanted the dog to do, the dog is like, dude, no.
Right.
And contrary to what everybody might believe, I have actually been on the end of one of those conversations with one of my certified dogs.
Wow.
And we're halfway through this conversation, and I realize that I'm standing there and I'm like, I know those words. Holy crap. We're having the talk. And it was this is not the job your dog wants to do, talk.
Okay, when you just said the talk, I was like, I felt my shoulders. I have a book on. We had the talk.
But the person I was having it with was incredibly kind.
Yeah.
And it really, truly became about it's too hard.
Yeah.
So that was, and actually I was flying home from that training and I made a phone call about, hey, I need a new dog. And the dog that got washed is Ray. Ray very happily is now 13 and a half, living upstairs, going deaf and maybe a little bit blind. She turned into a fantastic narcotics dog for me for about a year and a half. And she happily is the size of a coffee table. So, I mean, it's not that she's a bad dog. It's just that was not the job for her.
I had a conversation with my mom recently. She's like, "Oh, I'm so excited you're getting into this." She's like, I always thought, I was always wondering why you didn't do, getting a search and rescue." And I said, "Mom, I didn't have the right dog." And she goes, "Oh, I had amazing dogs." I look back at my first nosework dog, Judd. Just such an incredible dog. He would not have been the right dog. It's just like, she just all of a sudden went, "Oh, okay, all right."
Now I get it.
Yeah. And I'm like, Prize is the right dog.
And I remember us having this conversation about out of your three, which was going to be the right dog.
Yeah.
And I know your dogs well, but I don't know them, like living with them well. And so I just asked questions and you were like, "Nope, this is who I'm using." I'm like, "Okay, rock on."
And because when I take the dogs out, Prize is like this laser focus, does not deviate from the task dog. I have Brava, who is a rock star, right? 3 summit titles, amazing search dog, very, very talented, very driven. This is a high drive dog. You take her out into a field and she can't stop eating grass. I don't want to battle wilderness search and rescue with a dog who wants to eat grass when there's something really important on the line.
Correct.
But you know what? You put her in and you get her some converging odor and a nosework search. Today, oh my God, I did some training with her today. And I was in this big, huge pavilion. I set 2 elevated hides blowing into a huge group of picnic tables. And I had and down farther in, I had 3 close proximity hides. Like 2 of them were 18 inches apart. Another one was another 2 feet apart, like a little triangle. And Prize, I ran completely off leash and she was a rock star, but she didn't get those like bing, 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 all one after the other. But she did everything in under 5 minutes. She was amazing. Brava comes in and she comes in, gets an odor for those 3 close proximity hides and goes 1, 2, 3. I don't have another dog that can do that. So just because she'll go into a field and start to eat grass, yeah, she's not the dog for that job. Oh yeah, she's a dog for Summit. And I think it comes down to making sure that dog has the right job.
I don't know, guys.
I'm looking at some of these other comments. There's so many good comments in this thread. Jana goes about horses and being pushed the extra mile. And there at the end, she says, there's a massive difference in how it's achieved. And much too often, it absolutely is abuse, not letting them settle. Sometimes it's better to let someone settle for not achieving their ultimate best and favor their mental and long-term physical health. And then she talks about kind of gymnasts, and some of that gets directly into abuse. So many great points there. I have a friend that was really amazing. Well, Natalie, you guys know Natalie, amazing snowboarder and just one of the best. And just talking to her about the amount of push and pressure. And we think about that on humans and the things that we can understand. What is that doing to our dogs?
Yeah.
I mean, we can work through this stuff. We can talk about it. We can kind of figure out where we fit. I think it's difficult to think about how it does this to our dogs. And I love what Linda says. I want a coach that pushes me. And I think we all have to find out what is that push and what is our comfort level. And something I really appreciate, you mentioned teaching through Finzi. When we were kind of talking, there's so many things that like so many teachers out there that are already teaching the same subject. And it's like, yeah, but we all teach it differently. We all push differently and we all connect differently. And so I find that to be such an important piece. And I think when you know your material so well that you can say it so concisely, that's what I look for in a coach. If you have to take paragraphs and a long time to explain something, it just means you don't quite know it well enough for me yet. Because if you can say it in a couple sentences and you can boil it down to what I need to hear in that moment, that's the coach I'm looking for.
So that kind of gets me thinking, because a lot of times, I think this happens a lot with instructors, where you can tell once you start talking to somebody, do they have deep knowledge or are they repeating what they've heard?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if it's a repeating what they've heard, it is more of a parroting versus like there's not necessarily the depth of understanding, because you need that depth to problem solve. But if you're repeating what you've heard rather than have good deep knowledge of it, it's going to be tough to coach.
Yes. And one of the things that I enjoy about being a coach, and I have learned a lot, is that like every dog does not learn the same. Every human doesn't learn the same. How I explain concepts and try and get things across totally depends on the person standing right in front of me, because how I explain something to Stacy is definitely different than how I explain something to somebody who has only been doing nose work for 6 months. And as a coach, you have to realize that and understand that some of the concepts that we try and get across are really, really complex, but we have to do it in such a way that our learner understands. And that doesn't matter whether it's a dog or a person. So,
and it may mean that you only talk about pieces of it at one time. I know for me, when I'm coaching, I may see a whole train wreck going on, and other people may see that it's kind of a train wreck. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you the litany of all the things that you've done wrong,
because I can't handle it.
No, exactly. It's going to be like, it's just, you're not going to make any progress.
Yes.
I'm going to pick 1, maybe 2 things to focus on, make progress there. Great. Put little check marks in the yeehaw column and just kind of keep going from that point. But I think that also comes back to, you really need to understand your subject matter, because if you don't, you're not going to know what pieces to focus on as a coach.
Right. Well, and you need to pick your battles, because they may need to fix some very specific things before you can give them the other things to fix.
Yep.
That's really important as a coach. And you have to be able to do that sciencey stuff sometimes to tell them, well, this is why.
We got 5 minutes. Let's take away. What are your takeaways, friends?
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. I'm sitting here. So my biggest question in my head was, do I try to do a takeaway first, even though I can't think of something, because otherwise I'm going to hear what Robin says. I'm going to be like, dang, that was going to be my takeaway.
So mine's reading another couple comments. Emily, I love what she said. If a coach has to argue that their methods aren't abusive, they might have some self-assessment to do. I think that's something really to think about. If people are giving you feedback that you are abusive or you're too hard, or all of a sudden people aren't coming back to you, let's maybe do some self-assessment, because I also want to go back and I think I would love to listen to this episode again and listen to it through the ears of, we're talking about the human that we're coaching throughout, and then go back and listen to it again of, we're talking about the dog that we're coaching throughout. And I would like to hear what that sounds like now.
Yes.
Because I kept flipping my brain back and forth. I felt like it was a little light switch. I'm like, okay, this is talking about the trainer, this is talking about the dog. And how is that different? And as much as I want to be learning how to make it stick for the human and to make it enjoyable and to make them want to do more, that's always the plus R side of me. It's the same for my dog. I want to use as few words, as few things as I possibly can to make the impact that I can. Now that's kind of funny because people will be like, you use too many words in your training already. So in that one, I mean, fewer words with the humans, maybe. So that's some of my takeaways.
I think my takeaway is that that's a two-way street. And it's not just the coach, it's also the learner. And that the learner really has to be also honest with themselves and open with themselves in order to hear what the coach is saying. And because you can be the best coach in the world, but it's difficult to coach somebody if their ears are closed. So ears and mind. And from a coaching perspective, it's also, you also have to be paying attention to the delivery. So it's kind of a two-way thing.
It is. I totally agree. And probably my biggest takeaway comes from some of the comments is I look for different coaching based on different places where I'm at with the dog. There are certain points I need cheerleaders, and there are certain points I need people to basically yank my chain and set up something really hard so I can find out where my holes are. Now, I try and be self-aware as to when I need that and who I select to do it, because I also understand that I do not do well in gotcha environments. But if you set up a hard problem for me and we fail it because I failed to take something into consideration, I'm good with that, but it must be done in a constructive manner. So the other thing that I will tell, this is one of the things that we talk about in coaching school, is there are dog trainers out there to fit the style of how you learn. Make sure you find one in the style of how your dog learns. And you can always learn something from somebody, even if it's how you don't want to do something. Mm-hmm. So with that, thank you everybody for participating and listening in today. We have some things in the show notes for you. And don't forget to sign up for Distraction Camp 1 and 2. We have a few spots left open to come join us on the farm in Nowhere, Iowa. But it'll be fun, and I should have mini donkey babies. Yay. So thanks everybody, and go train.
Canine Detection Collaborative! We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to k9detectioncollaborative.com. That's K9detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.